it's going to be a slightly different format than we usually have because obviously we've got candidates forum and a lot of people interested in hearing from the candidates and not hearing about us. However, some short announcements that I've got. We had most of our liaisons not come tonight because we wanted to keep most of the time, but we will post some of that information on our website. As usual, the fire department, the fire department gave us their report, which will get posted. Christina from the city manager's office asked me to remind everybody that it's October and that there's going to be the Tacoma Rescue Mission is collecting socks, and I will post that on our website. And also, Green Tacoma Day is coming up on October the 11th. And there are a number of sites, 7 sites around the city, I think. There are none in the North End. Perhaps we need to correct that for next year. So we don't like to miss out on any green opportunity. And one item that is on your agenda is about adopting its Stormwater Awareness Week from October the 6th to the 11th. That's this week. Many of you will remember we had some interesting presentations about stormwater and runoff and all of those different issues. And they are looking for people to adopt a storm drain outside your house. Keep your leaves out of it. One of our board members has already adopted her own drain. But again, we will be posting that information for you. So anybody interested in adopting a drain, that would be fabulous. I don't see the police here tonight. They normally are, and I don't think we have the public utilities. So we are going to be able to go straight into... Oh, sorry, Jennifer is going to give you an update.
I'm going to speak to you.
Sorry.
Real quick. Hey, it's so nice to see a packed house tonight. Thanks for coming to campus. Always happy to have you here. Wanted to give you a heads up. It's homecoming family weekend this weekend, and we're playing PLU. It's a big local rival. If you want to come to the football game, we would love to have you there. Also want to make sure that you realize there are a lot of things you can do at homecoming that are community related and open to the community. The 5K is going on, and I also have flyers in the back if you want to learn more about homecoming and what's going on. And if you don't already subscribe to any of our newsletters, you can do it with this postcard, also on the table here or in the back. And everyone always asks about our concerts because our school of music program is so fabulous. So we have some of the Jacobson series and concerts listed too. So please take a look, and so glad you're here. Go Loggers.
Go Lewis. So those of you who don't come to our monthly meetings, we normally have presentations from city council people and from various liaison organizations, but seeing as both of our the council members who represent this area are in races themselves, so we will dispense from that, otherwise we'd be giving them extra time, we wouldn't be fair. So before starting on the election forum, I need to read you a statement from the university that says, the University of Puget Sound is a non-partisan organization and does not support or oppose any candidate for public office. Consistent with the university's educational mission and in the spirit of community engagement, Puget Sound may welcome candidates to campus to share their viewpoints with their community. As a service to the community, Puget Sound may welcome other organizations to use its facilities. University facilities are generally available to organizations that agree to comply with university policies. And as we've always said, we are so appreciative of the University of Puget Sound allowing us to meet in this facility and use all of the audio, visual, and everything that they do. So it really, we have all the different neighborhood councils, I think we are the luckiest in the fact that we are able to meet here. So thank you very much, University of Puget Sound. So you will have hopefully looked at the agenda and seen sort of how we're going to do this candidates forum. So we have a mayor's race, 2 city council races, and 3 parks races. So that's a lot of candidates, 12 different candidates. So what our plan is to have each candidate has 5 minutes to address all of you. And they can hopefully introduce themselves, tell you what's on them. We will have a timer going so that they get 5 minutes. At the end of each race, we will have the candidates for that race, so the 2 mayor candidates or the 2 council candidates, and we're going to combine the parks. And then we have solicited questions. I've got 16 pages of questions that Jody is reviewing. So everyone's interested. That's fabulous. So I will, the board has gone through that questions, and I will be asking those questions that have been submitted. We are obviously only got about 5 or 10 minutes for questions, so I'm thinking we're only going to get 4 or 5. If you've got a question that is really important to you, then you're going to have to address it with the candidate yourself, either at the end of the meeting or via email or some other way. But there is no opportunity for questions either from the audience tonight or on Zoom. So that being said, if I could have the 2 candidates running for mayor, and we're going to take them in the order that they appear on the ballot. So Anders and John. And I don't know if perhaps you just, I'll set the timer, and then you've got 5 minutes. Okay.
All right, when you're ready.
Get a head start, Malcolm. Now I gotta be fair. 5 extra seconds, my goodness, that's cheating.
Girl.
Now it's 5 minutes.
Okay, hi everyone. Hello, North End. My name is Anders Ibsen, a lifelong Tacoma resident, former deputy mayor and city council member, and most of my life here in the North End, actually. Proud to live at 19th and Mullen. It was a privilege representing you for District Number 1, which is West and North Tacoma. From 2012 to 2019, we worked on some of the important issues like enhanced funding for infrastructure, started the ball rolling on important land use conversations, declaring homelessness an emergency, and advocating for a climate environment, among many other important issues. I'm running just for a simple reason. This is my lifelong home. I love Tacoma to death. It's a place I'm raising my 3 going on 4-year-old, as well as my rescue kitty. And it's where I'm committed to improving even more with smart policy, partnerships, and innovative thinking. I also have, as someone who's lived here my whole life, I've seen the things that we've done really well. I was literally there when I was 7 when they blew up the smokestack, so I've seen the actual progress in the flesh. I've seen what's arisen in its place. I remember being a stadium kid and literally smelling the aroma of Tacoma. Oh, it's well, and seeing what could be there in terms of the future of green industry, for example. There are a lot of challenges that people face. I've had the privilege of speaking with so many people in the neighborhoods, every single neighborhood in Tacoma, including the North End, personally visiting over 15,000 doors. And while people really believe in the future of our city, people are also really struggling and they feel like we're stuck. There's a growing frustration that everything from the affordability of our neighborhoods to public safety, response time, and just having a clear sense of direction for the policy issues that we care about, like homelessness, actually needing a stronger economic base through having a real vision and an accurate through line to achieve those goals, that we've been lacking. And that it's not for want of desire or for intentions, but for want of creativity and lack of follow through, and just a commitment to good public process. And that's something that I stand by in terms of my past service and something I'd really like to achieve as the next mayor. Part of how we're going to do that, besides lofty policy and good objectives, because there's also a 17 million growing budget shortfall with a structural component to it as well that we have to be mindful of. We can't overpromise. But at the same time, we can't let difficulties prevent us from leading and from thinking big either. We can't be that broken by the current circumstances. And so part of what this really speaks to me is the need for leadership, both in terms of drawing people in and making just amazing decisions on the front end that inspires confidence, but also who we bring to the table administratively too. So one of the most immediate major decisions that I feel uniquely qualified for to help with, that I think could be the real game-changing element for the city of Tacoma, is the upcoming city manager search. So I'm very excited about what that holds. But the key is just making sure that there's sufficient, just good small d democracy with the process, because having someone at the helm running the day-by-day operations, that can be essential in terms of actually making sure that we do get a handle on housing, instability, homelessness, public safety, economic development opportunities, and just making sure that you feel heard. And so making sure there's a good commitment to process, from large decisions like that to the smaller decisions like what's going on in your neighborhoods to getting your sidewalks fixed and so forth, that there's a good culture of follow-through and responsiveness baked into the city at the cellular level. That's something I care about. I feel uniquely qualified to tackle that in a myriad of issues, not just because of the fact that I served on council and have a list of legislative and other accomplishments that I can point to. You can check my website after that. But also the fact that I was the only, and am the only person running for this position who has participated in executive hiring. I hired City Manager Liz Pauley. I participated in the hiring of T.C. Broadnax, a very, very successful city manager, as well as Jackie Flowers, the current widely respected Tacoma Public Utilities Director. I'm also the only private employer running for this position as well. I run a successful business, successful businesses, and I know what good hiring looks like. I know what it means to have long, enduring relationships based on trust and credibility. I'm proud to say that most of my business customers are repeat referral, for example. And I think that good customer service, whether it's helping someone out in the housing market or whether it's helping someone get help when they need a building permit, for example, or if they need more prompt responsiveness for a public safety issue, I believe that good customer service begins and ends with good employee morale. So again, back to just building a great culture with clarity. Those are just a few of the things I care about. But ultimately, this is not about me, it's about you. So I'm very much looking forward to your questions. I'm going to give you 20 of your seconds back, just to save some time, because I believe in thoroughness. Looking forward to all of your questions, and thank you so much for caring and for voting.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Hines. I am the current City Council member for District 1, which is the west end of the city of Tacoma. I'm here pretty much every month, so a lot of you do know me, but I see a lot of new faces, so I'm going to start by just assuming no one knows anything about me and do a little biography. So, lived in Tacoma my entire life. I'm originally from the south end. I'm a Lincoln High School alum. I came all the way across 6th Avenue right here to the University of Puget Sound. Went to school here. And then I left and became a high school teacher in Federal Way, Washington at Top High School, coached football, and then now I work for the school district here in Tacoma, and I work in the Department of Academic Equity and Access, really looking at how we make our classrooms more accessible for all students. I support the Highly Capable program, I support AP, IB, college and high school, so my whole life has been dedicated to public service. That's my driving emphasis. From my earliest days, at Safe Streets in South Tacoma back in 1997, organizing my neighbors on how we make our community more safe, all the way through my time as a public school teacher and a football coach, helping young people find their passion in life and move forward, to my time now on the council, really trying to be focused on how we make sure the city can be one that we all believe is our destiny. I'm a wife, 2 kids. My kids go to Grant Elementary School and Hunt Middle School, and I live right on the other side of Silas High School. So that's a little bit about me. So why am I running for the mayor? I'm currently on the council, so John, why are you running for mayor? And the answer is pretty simple. I've been on the council for the last 5 years, and done a lot of really good things, but I'm frustrated. I know there's more we could do. I know people are frustrated with where the city is, and where we hope it could be, and where we find ourselves. And I think the important thing that I bring to the table right now is I've been on the council for the last 5 years. I know where we've been, I know where we are, and I have a clear idea about where I think we should go in the future. So where is it, John, you want to take us? Where I want to take us is I want you to imagine a city that's safe. Now, safety doesn't just mean police and fire and they show up when you call 911. It means, are you safe walking down the street between your house and your school or your business district? It means that when you're out with your kids, you feel fine with them going to the park and playing, and you can stay at home. You think about at night, I walk and there's street lights. When I get to an intersection, there's crosswalks. When I need help, someone's there. That's the city I want us to live in. And that's why I've been committed to public safety my whole time on the council. I'm trying to make sure we have police officers to respond to the call to 911. to investing in streets and sidewalks, to trying to find better ways for people to pick up trash, litter, graffiti in their neighborhoods. I also want you to imagine a place where people can find a home. So my dad was a truck driver in South Tacoma, and he sold the house. He sold the truck when he stopped driving long-haul truck driving and bought the house I grew up in. Tacoma used to be a city where a working-class family could find a home, raise a family, and be part of the city. And we're slowly not that city anymore. So since I've been on the council, I've been really focused on how do we make sure there's more housing, more opportunities for people in our community to find a place to be part of it. From Home Tacoma, to multifamily tax exemptions, to ADU Accelerator, I've got a ton of programs I've worked on, all on that core idea of how do we make sure more people can find a home in our city. And finally, I want you to imagine a city where people have good jobs. Not just jobs, but careers. Not just a place where I go to work, but a place I can find meaning, where there's a career ladder, where I can move up it. That when we look at our port, there are jobs for people to work in. When we look at our business districts, our small businesses are thriving. When we look at our downtown, it's bustling and there are places for people to go. So imagine a safe, housed, and bustling city. That's why I'm running for mayor. And I know what it's going to take to get us there because I'm there right now. And rather just than saying the status quo is broken and not having clear visions of what to do, I know what to do. And I have clear ideas, and I'm ready to lead this city forward to make us into the place we all believe is our destiny. And with 20 seconds left, I'll say I'm so excited for Trick or Streets coming to the City Council on Tuesday. For Halloween, if you want to shut down your block with your neighbors and host kids in your neighborhood, Trick or Streets. We'll talk about it on Tuesday. Thank you.
So John comes here every month, so he sort of has a slight advantage because he knows what sort of are our issues. But needless to say, the first question is going to be about the Cushman Adams redevelopment. NENC has been working since 2017 on that. We've had a huge amount of input, predominantly looking for parks and public use. So we'd be interested in both of your opinion as to what do you see happening at Cushman? What do you think how is the process going? Is there an opportunity for a public development organization to take it over? And we'll alternate questions. We'll start with Anders, go to John, and then the next question we'll do it the other way around.
Sure, this is an immense opportunity. Overall, I've been tracking the conversation, and
1 minute.
yeah, 1 minute, okay. And I think that besides the need for third spaces, which we need more of anyway for our city, I think this could be a tremendously important value add to the community in terms of having an opportunity for not the kind of mixed use that you've seen in more areas like the Proctor District, for example, but we could see, for example, a great opportunity for affordable transit-oriented housing, for example. We could see that mixed with third spaces. We could see potential opportunities for local businesses, for example. And ultimately, this comes down to making sure that we set the right tone for collaboration between different entities, whether it's utilities, whether it's Parks Tacoma, whether it's finding the agency that's the best fit for making sure that we can get across the finish line and making sure we can facilitate a good dialogue for doing that. But I think the ingredients are there to make sure there's a real win for the community, for affordability, and for economic development as well, in a way that's a net win for everyone.
So try to keep it to a minute.
To a minute. All right, yes, no, many of you know I've tried this. I'll give credit to Councilor Arsenio. He was the one who put it on this historic registry back in 2017. He was on the council, so that's how we landed here in the first place. Since then, I've really been focused on kind of what's next now that we've declared it historic. And so I was helped get the funding for the Cushman Adams reuse study. I'm looking forward to kind of how it moves forward. I've talked to you a lot about this. I think the Cushman Adams substation can be many things. I think it can be a lot of the things we've talked about here before. It can be park and open space, it can be community space, it can have housing, it can have businesses, it can be lots of things. It is a regional asset for this community. Meaning it's something that everyone should be able to see themselves in and be part of. And so that's what I'm committed to. It's not surplus till 2028, so we still have some time, what TPU is still using to think about what it's going to look like going forward, to figure out potential financing, to figure out potential partners. And I'm committed to seeing the process through and really honoring what was said during the public process about Cushman Adams. You all have done amazing work on that conversation, and I think it's important that what the final product is reflective of that.
So, next, let's have an easy one for you. On trees, what is the most important step that should be taken to achieve the City of Tacoma's goal of a 30% tree canopy by 2030?
Well, we did one of the most important pieces, which is updating the code to preserve trees in the right of way, which is good. I think the next step is how do we encourage people to plant trees on their own properties and encourage them to keep the trees on their property that are already there. That's the big one. We are moving into a process of talking as a council about what about beyond residential properties, so commercial properties and industrial properties, how do we get them to add trees? Because I think that's really important. I would just say, since I saw the notes, our tree canopy has actually increased in the last few years since we did the LiDAR study, so that's really good. We're making some good progress, but there's more to be done, and so I think it's really coming down to encouraging people to plant trees and maintain them.
Well, partially, it comes down to better coordination of what's already there. So we have agencies working in conjunction with the city, like you might have heard of the Pierce County Conservation District, for example, that they do amazing work for de-paving, for example. Could we better work with them, with other agencies like Parks Tacoma, to better take advantage of the surplus property that's already there? So one of the opportunities that we have isn't even necessarily talking about trees, but just broadening how we look at canopy. So for example, if you're looking at grasses, I mean, if you look at capital projects, like in some of our neighborhoods in which we've seen beautiful street redesigns, sometimes they're trees, but other times they're wild grasses, which are great for the stormwater management, for saving our salmon and orca populations, and just keeping an open mind about what that means, because it's not enough to just have a capital project, you also have to have an eye towards maintaining it, and that's just as much true for vegetation as it is for asphalt and concrete and physical infrastructure. And so just having a mind towards that and for better stewardship of our water. So I'd be very much interested in policies like what the city of Y'all was looking at, for example, of having what's called a bee city. So having pollinator plants and other types of plants that are carbon sinks, for example, that can also help the bees, but are also just more visually appealing, which I think has public safety implications if you beautify public spaces. And then finally, just making it easier for property owners to do the right thing. So it's no good if we grow plants and they just die a year later, or if they destroy your sewer or sidewalks. So making sure that property owners are set up to win with better technical education too.
Thank you. Homelessness. Let's use this question. So what would you do differently to address homelessness and affordable housing? And how will you measure the results? Previous spending programs haven't been effective. What other cities have been effective, and what are they doing?
This is extremely timely, and I'm sure I'll let John speak to his proposal that's going to be introduced tomorrow. But this is one of the chief frustrations so many Tacomans at the door have been telling me about, is the perception that the intent is there. I mean, there absolutely is an intent on the part of the city to strike the balance between enforcement on the one hand and also compassion. The problem is our approach is really chaotic, because the effect of having enforcement but without a very clear follow-through for services is you just end up moving people from neighborhood to neighborhood. And I've seen with my own eyes encampments that were removed and swept and then just came back a few months later, for example. There's one that is literally affecting a rental property that I own right now. I've been on the receiving end of it. So enforcement is a tool that we need to have along with services, but it's more about the clarity of the plan that's really been lacking, that as so many people have been talking to me about. What's also crucial is marrying our local efforts as much as possible to the regional conversation that's finally been burgeoning with Pierce County and with our surrounding jurisdictions. I was just talking with a person who was abroad in Europe, for example, and much poorer country GDP-wise, but where was the homelessness? I mean, these are winnable fights that we can do. I mean, there's a great book out there called Homelessness is a Housing Problem. I think some of you might have read it. And the example I give is veteran homelessness, which was literally cut in half ever since 2009 when federal and local policymakers decided to prioritize it and make it an initiative. So these things are not like the weather. We don't just have to passively accept them, but the trick is actually having real policy and not just statements, not just politics, but actual follow through. So being better partners regionally and making sure that we're not just moving the problem around, but actually dealing with the core causes.
Oh, sorry. Do you have to repeat the question? Yeah, I gotta get my chance, right? Just to provide some clarity here, I would posit to say that the assessment there's not a clear plan or vision here is a bit is inaccurate. Right? The city has a plan to end homelessness. It's a very good one. The county also has a plan to end homelessness too. What I would say is that what we're really trying to do is strike the balance between keeping our public spaces open to the public for public use and trying to address homelessness and getting people housed and sheltered. And it's two parts of the same conversation. They're different questions. I would say that I agree that the homelessness is a housing problem, and how do we get more people housing and shelter will be the way we end homelessness. I would just say that the city is facing a structural deficit that my opponent has mentioned, and that's very clear to me, and it's really putting a pinch on our ability to provide shelter and housing for folks. And so when we think about it not just being policy, I would dispute that and say it's not just policy, it's dollars. And how do we pay for it? Because if we had enough money to provide a shelter bed and housing for every single person in this community, we would do that. The challenge is we have to make a choice. We have choices that we have to make because our funding is a challenge. And so what we are trying to do as a city is, one, pay and encourage and provide shelter and housing for folks like the Rescue Mission, like the Tiny Home Villages by Anders and I's house that I'm very proud of, like the Stability Site, like Kingfisher Village down in Hosmer, like these are sites to send people. And then also through Home to Tacoma expand housing options so people can not only be sheltered and housed, but move into housing. I think the challenge, though, is coming back to the questions I think many of you have heard me say, which is one, to have offers of shelter and housing. It's important. But two, the question of what do we do in the interim period where what we are offering folks is not what they want? Because that is something we're running into. And so the question and the conversation for the mayor leading forward that I have been part of and I will continue to be part of is, how do we get closer to getting people the shelter that they want or need? How do we balance that with keeping public spaces open to the public? And how do we align all of this so that at the end of the day, we have everyone housed, and we're spending less on homelessness and shelter and more on other things that we all care about?
Okay, the last question, although we asked everybody to prioritize North End issues, this question came in and it resonated with everybody. So, can you provide concrete details describing your plans to ensure downtown Tacoma is reinvigorated, that downtown businesses are supported, and this vital core of our city is developed to its full potential and vibrancy? Downtown is already a hub for services and transportation and still has plenty of buildable land. We cannot thrive as a city if the city's heart is allowed to wither. So a minute each.
Great question. Three ideas that I want to work on as mayor. Number one, we started this business engagement and success team, our BEST team, which is a multi-department team that goes out and works with businesses to try to understand what their issues are and get them the support they need. One of the things we found out during the crime plan that Chief Moore led on was that it's not just enough to have the police show up when there's a safety issue. You need community and economic development, you need public works, you need environmental services, you need the whole organization to show up. So I'd like to expand our BEST team so we have people out working with businesses downtown to understand their issues. Second, we got to streamline our permitting process so it's easier for businesses to get started, open, and expand. I think there's a lot of cool ideas out of Bellevue where they're looking at using technology to try to really streamline their permitting process and get it done even faster that I'd like to pilot here. The last thing that I think is important and we have to have the conversation about is we need to look at potentially, we are the largest employer downtown, the city of Tacoma, and we still have the majority of our workers who work from home. And so we need to talk about if we can bring our employees back more regularly so that they can be downtown, bringing some of the vibrancy, shopping in our stores. I work for the school district. I do not work in a job where I need to be in the office and cab, but when the teachers went back, every single one of us went back to work. And so I think that's an important conversation we have to have and the mayor is going to have, which is how do we make sure that we are also contributing to downtown?
So the history of why downtown has been challenged is two-part. One is the mall. Okay, so 100 years ago, the downtown was where all the action was. That was the retail, that was the place, right? And the mall changed that just like a lot of other places, and that's just basic urban history. But that was the one punch. The 1-2 punch was the city's reaction to it, because there was a very flawed policy at the time, which they didn't know any better, it's well-intentioned. You might have heard of it called urban renewal, which was basically knocking down historic buildings and just clearing up as much space as possible for parking, for surface level parking garages, You see all those dead spaces around the myriad of parking garages downtown. And it was all about how do we out-mall the mall, basically. And it turns out malls do it better, right? And so what we have basically is a very flawed design. We have a strip mall with the occasional tall building, and we have infrastructure that's not conducive to third spaces, walkability, in the sense of actually being an urban center. And that's why downtown is in peril. That and the average area median income is still quite poor. I mean, it's still predominantly Section 8 and nursing homes downtown, which we absolutely need affordable housing, but that also can't support retail and service businesses and so forth, right? So it's got striking balance. So how we get there over the long term is, I think, a couple of different things. One, over the long term, is looking at the infrastructure to re-urbanize our most urban centers. So that means more like the Pacific Avenue streetscapes, for example, which, not coincidentally, if you look at some of the pockets of downtown that actually do have nightlives, like around the Matador, for example, or around Woodland City, or the Mix, for example, those are urban-feeling areas that have protected things like back-end angle parking, protected bike lanes, trees. So more of that, commercial or residential conversion. I myself am skeptical about the office because people are feeling the economy, and I think there are a lot of downstream unintended consequences. I think we need better design.
So, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Can we have a round of applause for the... I think we have 5 pages of questions for the mayor, so I will forward them to both of you, and perhaps you want to stick some answers on your websites, or obviously they're anonymous when they're coming from us, but it does give you an indication of what is making everybody. We didn't have time for taxes or planning or all of those other things. So thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome up the candidates for District 2. So Sarah, you're first on the ballot. You get to go first. And you get 5 minutes, and I will...
Hi, I'm Sarah Rumbaugh. I think many of you know who I am. I am the current city council member for District 2. And just a little bit about me. Our district starts all the way in northeast Tacoma, and that's where I live. And doesn't mean I don't represent the whole district. But I just wanted you to know a little bit about how I grew up. I grew up in Bellingham. I've been living in this state for almost my whole life. I went to Gonzaga University on a scholarship for cross country and track. And I probably wouldn't have been able to go to college if it wasn't for that scholarship. I then went to get a master's degree at Evergreen State College in environmental studies. So probably one of the reasons I care so much about our environment here. The things that I really have been talking about at the doors to people is about homelessness. It's on everyone's mind, and if you look at my email box at work, that's what it's full of, is mostly questions and concerns about homelessness, which is tied to a lot of issues in our city. And I want to lead first off with the idea that we are working on homelessness as a city. We have been doing over 80% of homeless services in the city of Tacoma. And I think people are tired. And one of the things that you should know is that the county is concerned as well, and we have put together something called the Unified Regional Approach to Homelessness. And we just had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and we really moved further forward on what that's going to look like. It includes the county, cities in the county, as well as the city of Tacoma. And we are working on a way that we're going to put together a plan, as well as find a way to fund it. And as Councilmember Hines was talking about, homelessness isn't about that we can't figure out how to solve this, but it's expensive. And if we expect the city of Tacoma to keep doing this, we're going to wear ourselves out. And that's why we've had to close some of the homeless sites that we've had that were really successful. The stability site up on 35th and Pacific was a good model of something that can happen out in the county. It provided tents and tiny homes for people. One of the things we do really well in the city of Tacoma is create community around these sanctioned sites that we put together. And with neighbors involved, they can buy into something and know it works because they see it every day. They see the benefits, and they see that the crime is down. They see their cars aren't getting broken into anymore. So I believe strongly that our our city does a good job with that kind of thing, and I want to see that happen out in our county so that they are also involved in this solution. The other thing I really care about is domestic violence, and I know no one else is going to talk about this topic, but I am. Domestic violence is one of the things that leads to homelessness. We've had a 65% increase in domestic violence in our county since 2022. The #1 zip code is Parkland. And I believe that's why we have a Crystal Judson Family Justice Center and all of these amazing nonprofits working on this problem. And we're not going to walk away from something I think is so important and such a big part of why people end up on the street and without a house. And right now, there's no place for people to go who come in, who are a domestic violence survivor. The third thing I really care about is the canopy, the tree canopy, and I know this neighborhood council really cares about that as well. And, you know, I see it differently. Everyone else has brought, so far the mayoral candidates talked about it, but I believe strongly that we need to find a way to help citizens be able to take care of their right-of-ways. Asking people to foot the bill to trim their trees or take care of them sometimes is a difficult ask. I also believe that we need to look at all of the different areas in our city, including private property, and making sure that we're protecting trees that are located there. Out in my neighborhood, I had a neighbor who was cutting trees illegally on the right-of-way on 509. Thank God for my neighbor who was catching it on video, and that person actually is now being prosecuted. So it is possible that we can change the way things happen in the city and do enforcement. That's a good example. Tied to almost everything I brought up is public safety. And that is a big concern for people, and I did support making sure we have lateral public officers added to our force. We're at 18 now, and it's helped because we had 65% of our newest officers were 0 to 5 years that they've been on the force. So I think that that's really important.
I'm Ben Lackey, I'm also running for district. I'm running because I'm really angry with the way things are, and I've been very frustrated by it. There's this notion that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you're voting for an incumbent, I ask you to consider that. If we look past over the last decade, the general fund has grown by 70%. If you adjust for inflation and population growth, general fund has grown by 17%. So we're spending more money. We're just getting less for it. And we're seeing that in the deficits. If I'm elected, I want to focus on 3 different areas. The first is homelessness. The second is basic services. And the third is public spaces, including something called Bayside Trails. There's a flyer back there that talks about it. It's something I've been working on a lot. So let's step through those a little bit. On homelessness, I think the current approach is laziness masquerading as compassion. We leave people to die on the streets, and we know it's a problem. The city has statistics on this. 86% of the people NCS reaches.
We can't hear you back.
Oh, okay. Getting passionate. 86% of the people NCS reaches out to refuse the outreach. They do not want to be in shelters. And any candidate you talk to, you need to ask them the question, what is going to happen when somebody refuses available shelter? Because that is the main thing we're looking at. There are solutions to this. This is what we used to do. It's what other parts of the country do. It's what other parts of the world do. We need to provide shelter. I'm firmly believing in compassion. And we're spending enough to provide it. We spend $18,000 per homeless person. The cost of a 1-bedroom apartment in Tacoma is $17K. That's nuts. We spend on programs that don't make sense. The city council recently approved $5 million for anti-homeless fences. We spend God knows how much on anti-homeless rocks. They're buried in different parts of the budget. I know. My favorite is the Purple Bag Program, which delivers purple bags to homeless camps for them to put their trash in. That apparently was such a resounding success that we've recently doubled down on it, and we're now handing out buckets, 5-gallon buckets with toilet seats and a little mini tent, so you can make a sort of makeshift outhouse. I mean, this is like the breeding ground of the next cholera epidemic. And I would point at this, and I would say this model has been tried elsewhere. I've seen the townships in South Africa, not a great place. The slums in India, not good. I haven't seen the favelas in Brazil, but I've read about them. They don't sound great either. We're importing this model to our country. And rather than providing the homeless with shelter that meets code, we're building slums for them, trap them in these slums for all time. I think it's an un-American model, and I think it should end. So that's homelessness. Number 2, basic services. I just think a little common sense. Just let's go through the budget line by line. Like, I have a master's degree in statistics. It's not that hard to look at a spreadsheet. Let's make sure everything adds up. Let's cut programs that don't make sense or we can't afford. One I like to pick on because it's just so easy is called participatory budgeting. Every year we hand out $1 million to each of the districts. People go to a web page to vote on their favorite project. Last year, District 2 got a skateboard park while running a deficit. I love skateboarding. I used to longboard to work. But spending $1 million on a skateboard park while we're running a deficit doesn't make sense. Last one, the Bayside Trails. Built in 1975, stretch from downtown to Old Town, run 2.3 miles. I've succeeded over, among other things, Sarah's objections in getting a third of it reopened. That's the section on Parks Tacoma. 2/3 remains closed. That's managed by the Environmental Services Department. Trails are not in their remit, so they've stated they will never reopen them. The solution, I believe, is to pass the land to Parks Tacoma. Parks Tacoma can reopen it. We have so many volunteers who would love to work on the trail. They just need to be allowed to. This could be done either very cheaply or at no expense whatsoever. Am I out of time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. If I can, one more. I've asked Sarah to answer questions from voters on the subreddit, Tacoma Politics. She has not responded. I will answer any questions from anyone on Facebook, Tacoma Politics, or...
We're not doing any interactive stuff.
So, absolutely.
So we're going to have questions, 10 minutes to questions for these 2 candidates. Some will be the same as previously and some will be different. But we're going to start off with the mayoral candidates talk. We asked them about downtown, and I'd just like to preamble that by saying Council District 2 includes part of the North End, but also most of downtown Tacoma. To many, the Proctor District appears to be overbuilt at the same time as downtown is underbuilt. Then could you talk about what's going to happen downtown, perhaps to make it more Proctorish? So, no, I think you start.
I started.
You start this time, and then this time.
All right, so I love downtown. I'm somebody who believes Sarah Shaw's local. That means I'm there downtown. A couple things. One is I think that you need to have a mass of people to make an area successful and create that business vibe, and that's what Proctor has. You have a lot of people who live up here, and that's something that's happening downtown. Of course, a little slower, but we have several projects that are in the works, and we've built a lot of housing. So we need housing, we need to activate spaces. That's the other thing, and we are working with Downtown Tacoma Partnerships. That's the BIA, the business area, that they also provide safety and pick up litter and do murals, not murals, they remove graffiti. But I think it's having a place that feels safe, but we create that by making sure that people are at work and that we have people living downtown. So I think those are the key things. I have a city planning background and I understand how downtowns work, but we won't have a successful downtown, just like other state places downtowns are sort of changing, and it needs to become a neighborhood, and it will become a neighborhood as long as we continue to build more housing downtown.
Okay, first off, I think it comes to home in Tacoma. There were a lot of unintended consequences around that. We incentivized development in less dense single-family neighborhoods, and that pulled dollars that should have been spent downtown. We should have been building dense, low-cost apartment housing downtown, where there are vacant lots, where there are vacant buildings, where the infrastructure can handle it without additional impact fees. And I really think that focus on development will change a whole bunch. Tacoma has a long history of losing businesses like Russell, like State Farm. We really need incentives to draw them to the city. I think that will address a lot. Then we get back to kind of the core cause, which homelessness has forced a lot of the businesses out. We've seen that around Stadium Thriftway. The whole thing's a ghost town, artists are gone, all that. Is that my minute?
Thank you. Next question. What do you think is the primary problem with the Workers' Bill of Rights citizen initiative? If it appears on the ballot and voters approve it, after the 2-year waiting period, what amendment would you propose to improve the circumstances for both Tacoma employers and minimum wage workers?
I think that idea has a lot of unintended consequences. I think it's going to backfire and produce the opposite of the intended result. First off, minimum wage should be indexed to inflation, and it should just grow upwards naturally according to that. There are various other provisions that will restrict businesses and just make it more difficult to hire. I think our focus should be on not developing more minimum wage jobs, but developing more middle-class jobs, like jobs people actually want that they can afford to raise families and so forth. And that really refers back to like Weyerhaeuser departing, Russell, State Farm, all that. We want those sorts of employers here, I think.
So unfortunately, I'm not really allowed to answer this question because right now we're appealing this. So if you want to ask me a different question, you can, but unfortunately, our city attorneys has told me I'm not allowed to answer this question. So I apologize.
My apologies.
No, that's okay. I was going to tell you, but sorry.
That's okay. We'll jump onto something else. Polling shows that most Tacomans want more walking and biking infrastructure so that they and their kids can feel safe getting around the city without a car. Yet Proposition 1 didn't pass in April. What will you do to ensure more funding and faster implementation of this desired infrastructure? I'm not doing it well.
You're doing fine, Peter. So, yeah, we didn't pass our street initiative. And I think if I asked any one of you, you would say, because we did not get buy-in from our community. And so the one thing I would do differently is in Oregon, they do a system where they bring the yes and the no into the same room and they work out what the initiative should look like. So I think that you need to have more people involved in anything like this, where people get a chance to say what they think works for a street initiative. If we don't pass a street initiative, those missing sidewalks and the bike lanes, just so you know, my opponent came here on his bike today, on a bike, probably on one of the bike paths. They don't just get put in there. They're actually funded through, part of it's funded through our street initiative dollars, and then we go out and get a grant for the rest of it. And that's how we funded all of that infrastructure. And I think that that's something I really believe strongly in, and I want to make sure that the street initiative passes. So if you want to be a part of that, we want to know that. So thank you.
Thanks. I think Proposition 1 didn't pass because there's no trust from the voters. The money wasn't going to be spent on roads, it was going to be spent on random other things. One I hate, there's a bike lane at 11th and MLK, it's completely unusable. I would, as a cyclist, more than anything, prefer roads that are paved and swept with street scooters off it. That's all I want. I don't want crazy bike infrastructure. To that point, I mentioned the Bayside trails. Rather than restoring the existing trail we have, City Council had earlier this year planned to spend $49 million to build a new trail parallel to it along the sidewalk on Schuster. Oh, it gets worse. The budget has now ballooned from 49 to $115 million. And like, this thing is unusable. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't exist. The trail we have should be built up instead. And we have this problem. We keep spending on these crazy projects that will make people's names versus the boring minutia of maintaining the infrastructure we have, like Lakeside, like Blueberry Park, and so on.
Okay, back to one of our favorite topics. Of the cities in the region, Tacoma has the most sparsely planted urban forest. Several groups have formed to preserve existing trees and plant new ones. However, there are some city departments that see a conflict between their mission and the goal of increasing canopy coverage. For example, the Stormwater Department is concerned about increasing the urban forest canopy because it means the rain will likely carry more leaves into the stormwater system, increasing the risk of blockages and street flooding. What is your plan for resolving the competing objectives of increasing the density of urban forest and reducing the likelihood of clogged water systems and flooded streets?
Oh, I love this one. Yeah, trees are great. They should not be planted everywhere. I love the bike path along Ruston. It's really bumpy, and that's because we planted trees right along it and disrupted it. Not a good idea. Trees belong in certain places in like parks where the roots can grow all around. This idea that on private property, we're going to restrict the ability of a homeowner to manage their own trees, it is hugely problematic. And I think if we can't trust individuals to do the right thing on their own property, we've already failed as a society.
So I think as far as the city goes, I know this issue comes up with Public Works and the Environmental Services. So Environmental Services went and did a stormwater project. And within that stormwater project, it was on 19th all the way to Karina Bakery. They only put one tree in. So I'm not sure how it is that Environmental Services could be putting a project in, Public Works comes, puts the pavement in and the sidewalks in, but no one talked about where we might put trees in the right of way. And so I think it's about coordinating and working together and making sure that when we put out projects that we're thinking strategically about where those trees should be. I think our sidewalks, I think it's important that we have trees because they provide shade. And so on hot days, I think if you're out walking, I think you appreciate having trees in your neighborhood. And some of the most desirable neighborhoods have the most trees. So some of the things we like about Proctor and District 2 is that there are a lot of trees that we get to enjoy as they change, the colors change and the foliage changes. So I think that this is something that we need to work out with our departments and make sure that they're all working together, so.
And how about a huge, we have several pages of questions, we'll send them to you.
One more thing, Ben's wife just had a baby, so just want everyone to know she had a baby.
I welcome up to 2 candidates for District 6.
Now I can come.
You can come up. Good in the ballot versus.
So surprising, so I was dead last in the primary. Hello, all. Can y'all hear me? Sometimes I can talk a little low. Okay. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having us. Latasha Palmer. I'm a mother. I'm an advocate. I'm an entrepreneur. I've lived in Tacoma my whole life. I've lived in, I think, just about every zip code in Tacoma, whether that was as a tenant or going to school or my first time I moved out, I was 17. You know where Wild Orchid is off of 6th Ave? I live right behind there, so I've literally been everywhere in Tacoma. But I'm running because I believe I'm the only candidate that brings forward-thinking ideas to what we need to, the issues that we need to address. I'm the only candidate who really considers sustainability as something that actually equals stability and good business. And I believe I'm the only candidate who is ready to govern on day one. So why do I think I'm ready to govern? So last year, I don't know how many folks followed the Charter Review Committee work, but that's kind of was my introduction to y'all, and I came and presented our work on that to your neighborhood council. So we spent over about 100 hours putting together. If for those that don't know, the charter is basically our city's constitution, right? So it covers the structures and functions and all the things that ins and outs of how the city runs. So I applied for that. Some folks were appointed. I applied, interviewed, and was appointed by the whole council. And again, spent 100 hours going through, fine-tooth comb, every piece of the charter to see what we could do to improve upon that for y'all in Tacoma. And those things that we recommended would go forward to you all to vote on the ballot. So we went through that process, and I chose to spend a lot of time on more forward-thinking recommendations. So I looked at things like policing accountability and election reform and things that I thought would affect people power. You guys being able to have a voice at the city, a bigger and more involved voice. And I was happy to say that towards the end of the process, a lot of these things were new that I brought up for people who were in the committee. They hadn't heard about a lot of these things, but towards the end, a lot of the folks that these concepts were new concepts ended up agreeing and putting them forward to council. So, and I believe I did that in kind of 3 ways, right? The first one was I brought what I knew. I went to university at Columbia University in New York, got my bachelor's there, did a multidisciplinary studies, and that covered stuff as far as like urban studies and sustainability, and so I kind of brought those things into the work that, and political science, brought those things into the work that I was doing on the charter. The second thing I did was listen, right? I heard what people's concerns were about the things that I was bringing up and presenting to them, and I came with options. I came with research to support the things that I was bringing forward. I came with open ears and an open heart and less ego to listen to what other people are wanting. And we compromised a lot, right, to make things work. That was part of what we did too with, I brought forward a neighborhood council recommendation to try and give y'all a little bit more teeth in the things that you're wanting, and for the city council to actually not just like check a box of, okay, we presented these things to y'all, but we're actually going to listen and have to implement some of the things that they're asking for. So I presented that to y'all during that process. And then the third thing I did was I really told them my reason why what I cared about these types of reforms. And that was because of my personal story. I have 34 seconds left. But basically, my children's father passed away when they were very young, and I started to try and look for the reasons why he got, and it was due to mental illness, and what kind of got him to that point. And so I wanted to prevent that from happening for my kiddos, right? And so that's why I started on this journey in trying to make our city look better for them. So again, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have the endorsements of a couple of state reps. We have Jasmine Trudeau and Laura Jenkins. We have 3 of our county council members. We have about 20 organizations counting. Those are climate orgs and other housing orgs and the like. So, and that's my time. Thank you so much. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having all of us here. My name is Jessica Johnston. I'm running for Tacoma City Council, position 6 at large, which is a citywide race, which means all of you can vote for me, which I cannot wait, and thank you so much. Some things to know about me is that I'm a very passionate person. As you can see, I couldn't wait to jump up and be up here to speak to you tonight. But I also, the passion goes a lot deeper than me just speaking to you. It goes to me listening to you. It goes to me listening to my opponents, candidates, other folks, so that we can get real work done. We must be a team. So I first would like to say thank you to my opponent, Latasha, to all of the candidates that came out tonight. Anyone who is putting their hat in this ring deserves your respect. This is not an easy task to do. I can't even imagine council. So if we can work together, I think we can make a lot of really great things happen, which is also why I'm purple. I shake hands across the aisle because I'm sick of having to sit around and wait for one side to decide what the other one can do. We have to decide together because we are here as American citizens, as folks visiting here in America. We are all here to make the dream come true for everyone that's here. Should be included. And I am the person to do that here in Tacoma. This is a nonpartisan race, but a lot of people get it messy and a little conflicted. You need people that are willing to go to bat, to learn things and speak to people that they might not like and might not appreciate and might not want to have coffee with. But I will have coffee, dinner, and a cocktail with anybody in this room and anybody that I'm working with because I think it's very important to have that dialogue. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, hospital workers, bankers, can't leave my mom out, she'd kill me, just people who really care about their community. I was raised to leave everything better than when you found it and to make it better for the next people who are going to find it. And that is something that as Tacoma is lacking. My grandfather was the assessor of Pierce County in the 70s. He fought for a lot of the things that we're all talking about tonight that are just getting done. Let's not wait another 40 years to make progress happen for Tacoma or Pierce County. We must work together. So what do I do for work? Well, I run about 100,000 square feet of Tacoma. I run a city within a city. I run Courthouse Square, which is the downtown Tacoma post office, as well as KSP building up on Hilltop. Both historic properties, both beautifully restored, and both hold tenants and livelihoods and residents that mean so much to me. These are places that call home. I know downtown Tacoma well, I know Hilltop well, and I've gotten to know all of the districts well. I have had so much fun going doorbelling with my former husband, Derek, and it's just been great to meet all of you. And the one thing that we have realized is that, like everyone has said tonight, we all really have the three same problems that we're dealing with that are major problems, which are crime, which is the economy, which is homelessness. We can talk about that, but when the mayors were asked or told that they had five pages of questions, I welcome you to visit my website at electjessica.com because I probably answered all 5 of those pages. I am very eager and excited to tell you all the reasons I am going to help you. I currently am ambassador to the Chamber of Commerce. I am the vice president treasurer to Downtown Tacoma Partnership, the business improvement area. I am also the chair of the City Events and Recognitions Committee, which means so much to me. So with all of those things, it is money, it is economy, it is the arts, it is just community that we have to pay attention to. We have to find a way not to cut any of those things, but to somehow make it work. And again, the only way we're going to do that is if we all work together. So I do ask for your vote. And I have a lot to say, as I mentioned, so I'll give you 45 seconds back, which is shocking for me, so that we can get on to the next question. Thank you so much.
Try not to use all 45 seconds. If elected, you are at large, so you cover the North End, so we're back to if elected, would the candidates actively support the creation of a community centre and park at the Cushman substation and Adams Street sites and dedicate time and staff to seeing this a priority for the community? So, start with
I gotta tell you, like, that is one of my favorite buildings to drive past. I'm so glad that it's still standing. It's so beautiful. So I might support if we keep the heart of that building because it's just so beautiful and historic. But that's my whole thing, really. And I don't want that to just happen in this district. I want those kinds of hubs to happen all around Tacoma. I feel like folks, there's a huge national conversation about we need more people to have the spaces to go into debates and talk civically about civic engagement and get involved in their cities. And I agree that we need those spaces, and I call those neighborhood hubs. So I would love to hear more about what you all have pictured for that beautiful building. And I would love to see it come to a reality. I want to, again, see things like that all across the city.
Thank you, I wasn't that sure if that was real one. Excellent, thank you so much. That's a great question, and actually it's something that's been brought up to me recently. It's something that I think definitely needs to be discussed with the community that it's going to affect. I've heard good and bad things about that project. I am all for community centers. We need more spaces where kiddos can go. We need more spaces where I can go, where adults can go. There's a lot of community besides kids that want to gather in just a space that's for everyone, to do art, to talk, to bake, to knit. It was in Lincoln where I found this out. Now it all came back to me. Sorry about the Cushman building. Anyway, without getting sidetracked, we do need those projects. It's important that we put those forward. It's important that we figure out what you need though. As much as we all have the same major three concerns, we all have a lot of different concerns that vary and are unique to your district. So I think it's really important not to say what works for one district works for another, or we need all of this for this district because the other one has it. Does it make sense? That is the biggest point in anything I will say. Make it make sense.
I'm losing track. What kinds of experience and qualities would you look for when considering candidates for the city manager and the chief of police?
Thank you so much. That's a great question. Both are so important. And I think, as most of you probably know, in this room, we could have a whole new city, a whole new group of folks running our city. City council, new mayor, a new city manager, a new police chief. I will tell you, as far as the police chief, I know Patty Jackson well enough to know that she has my vote for anything she wants to do. So I certainly hope that she will continue to lead our city in the right way. I've spent a lot of time at the police department, and I know how she has truly changed the air in the building. She's created hope. She's created a place where people can voice their opinions, and also where they're getting good work done. And that's what we need at our police department. As far as our city manager, I think that we have quite a few candidates that could do really well. One thing that I like to remind people when we do get to go and choose our new city manager, that needs to be a person who understands business. You are the CEO of Tacoma. You run our lives. Regardless of the fact that you were appointed or not, you can see what Elizabeth Pauley had to go through. She had to make some tough decisions. A lot of those decisions were blamed on our mayor. But I think we need a strong city manager that will come out and own that, still participate with us as someone that was an elected official, because I do wish we would have seen Elizabeth Pauley out a little bit more. But she has a hard job. So I'm looking for a CEO. I'm looking for someone who's a strong leader with a compassionate heart, which is not easy to find, but I do believe it's out there.
I believe we're in what I call a trust epidemic here in Tacoma. And I believe that falls a little bit on kind of how things have been done at the city, with people not quite understanding or not knowing or not being in the loop or not being kept in the loop of what's happening at the city. And so I do think that when it comes to both of those positions, a huge thing that I want to look for is them being able to be present and engage in public engagement and hear out what you all are wanting. Because yes, they need to have, of course, all of the skills that we're going to look for, a checkbox of all of the things, but we also need somebody who's there to make sure that you all are being brought along during that process. With our chief, I agree. I met with Patty. I think she's doing great, and a lot of folks have said that they enjoy her and would like to see her come. I think Patty would agree that she also wants the best person in that seat, and so I think we still keep it open and see what who we can attract. But Patty is looking good.
back to the homeless problem. What do you see as a successful approach to the homeless problem? What policies would you change, initiate, or build upon? So I think we start with the top.
Homelessness is a huge problem, and I think, we all deal with it every day. We all see what's happening in our neighborhoods. And so I think we need a couple of different approaches, right? I don't think there's a one size fits all. The first is to make sure that we can get the beds that we have to used by the people who need them the most. I've heard that there's criteria with the beds a lot of the beds that we have where, if somebody has a pet or somebody wants to go in with their child, those beds aren't available to them. So we need to prioritize those that need the beds the most. I agree with Sarah Rumba about the regional approach. A lot of the folks that are coming in here that are homeless in Tacoma, unfortunately, did not start in Tacoma, to start being homeless in Tacoma. They're coming from other cities because Tacoma has the supports in the programs in order to support them. So we need to make sure other cities are in that work as well and playing a fair part. The other, there's a long term with a permanently affordable housing is what I'm a fan of. So not just housing that's affordable temporarily while somebody's getting a tax break, but housing that stays affordable for generations that can be passed on and build wealth for folks that need to build wealth. I'm also a huge fan of what's called housing first. If you look at what's happened in Finland, there's basically, it's less expensive to get people in houses, and I guess if we put ourselves in their shoes, what would be the conditions that would allow you to get clean or to make better decisions in your life? Probably not going to happen out on the street. We have to get folks into homes first, and then they can help deal with the mental health issues and deal with the addiction issues.
Thank you. So this is a great question, and one thing I like to start off this question with is there's very much a disconnect with people understanding the difference between what we can do for homelessness and what we can do for affordable housing. Affordable housing means someone like me who's a 44-year-old woman of color, even if you're not a woman of color, let's just say you're a 40-fold, you don't even have to be a woman. But someone who wants to come out, who works really, really hard and cannot afford their home. I know too many people that themselves or their family, friends cannot afford a home. So that's a whole other topic that is also on my website at electjessica.com. Now, for the homelessness, that to me needs to start with wraparound care services. That to me does not start with a home first. My husband and I, we do walk around the hilltop a lot. We meet people because we want to ask. We want to ask what's going on, how did you get there? They all have such a unique, different story. But what I feel and what I have been told by them is they first need services. They need to get back on their feet. They need support. You can't take someone who's been through a trauma that got them to the street, put them through another trauma by living on the street, and then just handing them a key and saying good luck. I don't think that is a real solution. I think that's a really pretty dream and goal, but I don't think that's how it works. So I believe in places like the Rise Center, people that are there to give you support, give you the medical that you need, whether that's mental health or addiction services, just giving you the self-esteem you need again, to realize that you could live in a home again. There's just so many layers to the homeless crisis. It is not an easy solution, but I believe we can get there together. But again, I do believe it starts with care and compassion first. Is that it? Do I still have time? Okay, great. One thing I also just want to mention is that I understand that we have a lot of folks that are out on the streets. We are not making it easy for them to get off the streets. I do not want to continue to walk my nieces and nephews and cousins out on Hilltop explaining why, Auntie, are we walking over someone's body? Why are we just allowing them to lay in the winter and the sun and all of these different elements and just hope they get a house? That is going to be a whole nother problem where we raise children with lack of empathy and lack of care for others, and I don't think that's being discussed enough. Thank you.
Can we give both candidates a round of applause?
explanation of why they're running, who they are, and then at the end, we'll be asking questions of all 6 of them. So can we first have up the first 2 candidates for Park District? Position number 1 is Alyssa and Jerry. So, and I see a few people who are running out. I just want to remind you, there was a mention today that there is some problem with the post office in getting the ballots stamped. So it is being recommended that you get your ballots in early, because although that they may not get the stamps on the day. So just as information. So 5 minutes for each of you, and then we'll have you back later with questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hello, my name is Elisa Lee, and I was appointed to the Parks Commission back in December to succeed Tacoma legend Aaron Pointer. I've been working hard to listen in and serve you all ever since. But I want to start off by saying, this is the path I originally saw for myself. I actually moved to Tacoma 15 years ago to attend this school right here. This building wasn't built yet, but it's really great to be back tonight speaking to you all. You know, I mentioned moving here 15 years ago. I came from a rural area, and so I grew up navigating not only my mixed race identity as the daughter of a refugee, but also the American way of life. And in that process, I actually ended up being my family's advocate, as so many children of immigrants do, and that changed me. Trying to help my family secure disability for my little sister showed me that the system wasn't working as intended. It didn't work for everyone, and so that inspired me to live a life of service, to want to give back. You know, after college, I went on to canvass so many of Tacoma's doors. I'd say I've been through the entire city twice, and I really fell in love with the city. I fell in love with Tacoma, with making connections with the people, each and every one of the area's unique problems and potential solutions and big dreams. For many years, I worked behind the scenes in leadership development. I supported candidates and policies that brought everybody forward together. But as I saw America change in the last couple of years, I really felt like it was time to step up and do more, to hold the door open for others, to be an inspiration, and to get out in a public-facing role. So I was really honored to be appointed to the Parks Board last year. For me, my biggest priorities are maintaining the programs that serve our working families. So that means protecting Club B and Beyond the Bell. After-school programs have been statistically proven to keep kids engaged and out of trouble. But we also have to do more for our seniors. So my second priority is access and inclusion for all ages, abilities, and cultures. Tacoma is set to become a majority Asian population by 2030. So that means we have to continue the good work we're doing. We just launched our senior hub this year. We're already doing some senior programs, but we took over the senior hub as the city had to close 2 of its senior centers. We want to do more. We want to be able to expand that programming while continuing to serve working families and our youth and our kids. And I also think maintaining our cultural programming, especially now, is really important. Our diversity is one of the things that makes Tacoma special. It's one of the things that makes us strong. And finally, I'm thinking a lot about park safety. Safety has come up a lot tonight. It's a complex issue that is not necessarily the job of solely the Parks Department to solve, but I still think we can do more. I'm thinking about safe park access. I'm thinking about activation. I'm also thinking about climate safety. We have 2 huge urban forests right here with Point Defiance and Swan Creek. So what can we be doing to make sure that we're keeping those spaces safe and accessible for everyone? I'm really proud to be endorsed by Pierce County Executive Ryan Mello, State Speaker of the House Lori Jenkins, Pierce County Central Labor Council, our firefighters, our teachers, and all of my Parks Board colleagues. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, good evening. It's a beautiful building. I'm a graduate of UPS. Came here many years ago. And UPS has always been, I think it is part of my home. What have I been doing since I graduated? Well, taught for 33 years in the Tacoma public school system. I taught at middle school, or junior high then, and then high school. I coached boys soccer for several years, coached girls soccer. Was involved with the golfing team for a while. I really believe that, you know, being involved in Tacoma has been very important to me, very important to the people that I know. I've also been involved in other positions, elected positions, because I encourage my kids in high school to get out and vote and get out and run for office. Don't just sit back. So the kids would look at me and they say, well, Mr. Thorpe, what are you doing? You know, well, I was elected to the park board. I was elected to the port commission. At one time, I was elected to the charter review committee. So I have been involved, and I've not been afraid of you know, going out there and saying, you know, what can I do to help out? There are so many issues out there, and one thing that I think is wonderful about our park system is that we have probably, bar none, the most beautiful park system in the entire United States. We have a park system that people are proud of. I was involved years ago with bringing muskox to Tacoma. I was up there in Alaska, and with the help of, well, Alaska Airlines provided the transportation for those muskox to come from Nunivak Island to Tacoma. And so I was involved in that. Many years ago, E.T., you might remember E.T., the walrus, came to Tacoma because he was an orphan. And I was fortunate enough to be able to have that walrus, when he was very young, practically sit on my lap, and I fed him from a huge bottle filled with whipped cream and minced clams and all kinds of things that, you know, but it was a great experience. And so I learned a lot from you as a park board member. And we have so much room for park board members and our citizens to be involved. And I would ask everybody to be involved more in our parks. It's fun. It's fun to be involved, and I encourage you to do more. I'm a senior citizen. I want senior citizens to know that I'm very concerned with how money is spent. And one thing that just absolutely floored me was when I found out that several $100,000 was spent to change the name of one of our high schools from one name to the other. And that's our money was spent to change a name that I was so floored with that information that I could hardly believe it. So my interest is to follow very closely what we're doing with our money, and to make sure that we spend our money quietly and cautiously so that we can get the maximum benefit. Thank you.
I'd like to invite the candidates for position 2, Carla and Malachi. Malachi. So Carla go first. 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Carol Santorno. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you today. First thing I want you to know, I was superintendent of Tacoma Public Schools until 2022 when I retired. And I promised myself when I retired that it wouldn't be the end of the work that I was going to do in the Tacoma community and with Tacoma families and youth. And so I've been real excited about, doing that work in the community. I've been involved in some key boards. I work with Green Tribe, which is our big preschool initiative, and they've been doing incredible work. I'm also on the Fast Waterway Seaport Board, trying to get every kid in Tacoma, at least to be on the water, at once and know that we've got, and also our citizens to know that Tacoma has this incredible water legacy that we want everybody to know about. And then, excuse me, and also, I've been on KBTC working with the public television. And so those things have been good, but it wasn't until I was appointed to the park board and I took the place of Tim Reed, who passed away in December, and I was selected by the board to be his replacement. And it was when I was on the Parks Board that I thought, this is just, it's almost like the schools. It's a very close alignment, and the skills that I learned in being an educator for many years is all going to be a good place in working with the parks. I'm a good strategic planner. I work with complex budgets. I know about problem solving. I'm a good, skilled communicator. I have a penchant for collaboration. I love partnerships. And so I really feel like I can take those things and put them together to work with our parks. And it's really important that, you know, we continue to do that work together. I've been drinking from a fire hose since I was appointed because the parks machine is huge. And there's a lot to do, but it's been exciting. I want to talk to you a little bit about my priorities. Number one is the same thing that I use in the schools. I want equity and access to every park, every program, every activity. And that sounds easy, but it's not, because sometimes we have people that are really ready to go and be a part of the park system, and otherwise, you know, we've done some in doorbelling. I've gone up and asked people, so, you know, what park do you go to, or what do you do? And they go, what park? You know, and they don't know there's even a park in their neighborhood. So we need to involve those people too and give them an opportunity to know what equity and access means. We need to really take on our senior population, because they came to us, and you know, we need to work on wheelchair roads and making sure that there's programming and things for our seniors to be involved. And then also we need to build programs to make sure that all students and adults that are disabled or have a disability or neurodivergent have an opportunity to go and work in our parks too. I'm a grandmother, and so that means I've seen 3 different levels of children, you know, and youth out in the parks. And I think it's real important that we take a lens that looks at what we have now and also to the future. So we know, I mean, the first time I took my grandchildren to the spray parks, I was like, whoa, that is really cool. But spray park's not the end, right? We gotta go to the next level. And so we need to take that lens and look at what the future's gonna hold and how we can make that better. I'm really committed to doing that. The second thing is that we always need to look at that lens for looking at revitalization and refreshing and improving our parks. There's always things we can do to make them better, and we need to listen to the people in different neighborhoods, because all the neighborhoods are not equal. And some folks need more than what they have, and it's really important that we look at that. And the only way to look at park improvement is to make sure that the people that are in our parks, that are using our parks, are the ones that are telling us what the advancement needs to be. I live in Northeast Tacoma. I've heard about needing a dog park. I know that people really would like to have another park to have in Tacoma. I know that we need more parking spaces at the Browns Point Lighthouse Park. We need to pay attention to those people who are using our facilities and find out what they need and what they're looking at. But the other thing that we tend to forget sometimes is we need to make sure that we hear from people that aren't using their parks, because usually, you know, people come in and they tell us and we pay attention to that. But if we're not paying attention to the people that actually aren't there, I need to pay attention.
We're done.
Okay. So, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. That's because you were standing in front of my board. No, just kidding. Anyway, I am excited about doing the work that we do in the parks. One of the things that I think you should is, Carla, if you're gonna come up here and tell us what you're gonna do, make sure that you're just not talking. And so I wanna have chats. I want to put out newsletters that say, here's the progress I've made. Hold me accountable for all the stuff I'm telling you I'm gonna do.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Malachi Cabrera. I'm your candidate for Parks Tacoma Commissioner position number 2. And I'm just super excited to be here tonight. I was just having a conversation with Peter earlier, and I think it's wonderful when we actually get a chance to come together and get to know all of the candidates that are on the ballot. It's super important to me. A little bit about myself. I am the youngest candidate and out of all the parks races at 21 years old. I know, crazy. I don't believe in myself sometimes. And secondly, I'm a South End resident as of 3 weeks ago, and I was in South Tacoma prior to that. Professionally, I work at Palmer Scholars. Some of you may be familiar. We are a nonprofit located in Pierce County that gives out college scholarships to young adults of color in Pierce County, as well as we host 2 post-secondary programs, including Pathways Entry into Construction Union Apprenticeship and GSI Entry into Environmental Services. My job is to get the money and form partnerships. So really happy to hold that role. So what made Malachi, 21 years old, want to run for parks? Well, for me, Parks Tacoma is both personal and professional. My partner, who is joining with me today, I've been with him for 5 years, and my parents did not agree with my sexuality. So at 17 years old, they ended up kicking me out of my home. And so being in South Hill at the time, I wanted to be in a place that felt inclusive, that felt safe, and more importantly, that felt welcome to all citizens. So as soon as that happened, I managed to graduate high school, with 2 months left in my high school career, if you will. I came straight to Tacoma after coming back home. And I've called Tacoma home ever since. I grew up came here when I was 7 years old, grew up in Parkland, redheaded cousin of Tacoma, but wanted to live within the city of Tacoma because I knew that that would be a place that my partner and I would feel safe, welcome, and just welcome to the city. So when I saw an opportunity to be a part of the Parks Board, I went for the appointment process, and I learned so much. You won't believe how much Parks Tacoma does for our community, and an impact that you more than likely feel every day without realizing it. But the issue for me is that I want folks to know what Parks Tacoma does, and I want folks to know the impact that they have on your day-to-day lives. So as a Parks Commissioner, if I get elected, I want to make sure that I'm reaching out to you. Not just coming here as a candidate forum, but coming to you monthly for neighborhood councils, having coffee with the commissioner so you know directly what's going on, and you're able to ask questions directly what the Parks District is up to. And I want to make sure that we're expanding our parks into all of our neighborhoods. There is so much opportunity for us to really activate some of our spaces. I look at the Captain Asheville Gas Station Park. That is a perfect example of what you can do when you turn a pocket park into a neighborhood attraction. Now I want to repeat that. When you turn a pocket park into a neighborhood attraction. Perfect example of that. So I want folks to know the impact of what you have when you really invest into a good green park system. Secondly, I want to make sure that the youth are represented on the board. Parks District has so much youth-facing programs, but the one thing that's missing is a youth either on the board or having youth input for the decisions. So even if I don't make it, I want to see creation of a youth advisory council. So that way, not only are the youth feeling the impact, but also having a say and seeing the process of how Parks Tacoma can lead the way for youth investment. I think we need to expand and ensure that we're prioritizing programs mentioned earlier by Commissioner Lee, Beyond the Bell, Club B, Summer Team Late Night. Those are existing programs to ensure that youth have access to after-school programs. Not only does it impact their life and their education and their social well-being, but also the parents. Right now, we're in a time where the reality for some folks is to work 2-3 jobs. So those after-school programs are critical. And as we start to see programs getting slashed, I want to make sure that we're still investing into things that makes our lives a little bit easier. Thirdly, I want to make sure that we're climate resilient. making sure that Parks Tacoma is leading the way, not just participating, but leading the way into making a stronger tree canopy right here within our city. Right now, there's an initiative saying that we need 30%, or a goal rather, that we need, the goal is to get 30% of trees within the city. I want Parks Tacoma to lead that initiative, not just participate. So collaborating with governments like the city of Tacoma, like the county, and ensuring that we're not only saying that we're gonna do it, but we are doing it, and we're feeling it. Again, my name is Malachi Cabrera. I'll be your candidate for Parks Tacoma position number 2. You can find me at MalachiForParks.com, and also I do have literature that has my email and my phone number. So if there's a question here tonight that we didn't get to, please email me, please call, text me. I always have it on me, and I'm very responsive. Thank you so much, guys.
Last but certainly not least, the candidates for position 3, Bronwyn and Pete. And who was first in the ballot was Bronwyn. You go first.
The curse of having a name that starts with a B. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's wonderful to be in community, to hear your conversations. I'm so glad that there's an emphasis on the Parks Board races this year, because too often they are kind of an afterthought, but they could not be more important for our community. So first, my name is Bronwyn Clark, running for position 3. And ultimately, I am running because we are seeing severe cuts to social services. And as a young millennial, I feel deeply the need to design our parks for the generations of climate change that my generation will have to endure. So I want to talk to you a little bit about why I have the vision and the experience necessary to meet that moment. Because ultimately, I believe our parks can be more than places for recreation. They can be hubs for community, connection, care, and climate resilience. So a little bit about my experience. I came to UW in 2014 to study at UW Tacoma, and it was just amazing to be in a city that cared so deeply about community. I don't think I've ever been to another place where there's more people invested in making their community a better place. And that spirit of community care really resonated with me. I left for a couple of years to get my master's degree in social policy from the University of Oxford, but the second that I could come back and get a remote job, I did. I chose to make Tacoma my home in 2019, and have been living in the South End neighborhood since 2020. Professionally, I've worked as a civic designer across government, making services better by listening deeply to community. So I've worked across a lot of different social services, from Medicaid to anti-poverty services, gun violence prevention, child welfare, domestic violence. I've done a lot. I also have worked at every single level of government and have experience doing budget analysis as well as serving on various local committees. And overall, I bring a systems thinking approach because our community doesn't experience our public spaces as either the city or parks. They experience them as spaces, right? So I think we need to respond to those needs with that lens. So I think that parks, in a lot of my social services work, I have seen directly that when people don't have resources, saw this a lot during the pandemic, monetary resources, they have relational resources. And those relational resources are really the fuel that gets them through really tough times. And thinking about our city, our parks are that infrastructure. They are our third spaces, our community centers are where people come together. And I think we need to think about how are we equipping those spaces, how are we designing intentionally for the needs both now and into the future. So our parks are amazing. I've heard that directly from nearly 6,000 doors that my team has knocked, but also they're not working for everyone. Many community members south of the freeways in South End, East Side, South Tacoma, it's harder to get to parks. They have to drive further. There are also seniors who can't access them, and our youth may not feel safe or welcome in those spaces. And I think that we have to do a lot to take this moment and seeing, okay, the systems aren't working. How do we reimagine? How do we find alternatives? And I think this is the perfect opportunity to do that. So in our remaining time, I would like you to imagine a future in which our parks are those neighborhood gathering hubs for everyone across the city. Imagine the money that we would save if everybody could access green gathering spaces where they felt like they belonged and they didn't need to harm themselves or other people. Imagine Parks Tacoma, as Malachi mentioned, having a vision for our tree canopy that leads the way, having a discrete goal to plant a lot of trees. Imagine building greenways that allow for cycling, walking, moving beyond our car dependencies so that we can actually get around our city in a way that is sustainable under a shaded canopy. And imagine thinking about our existing community centers from the lens of prevention. So what if we had social workers who were catching families before they experienced eviction? What if we thought about supporting the city's HOPE team in providing mental health and behavioral health responses to help our unhoused neighbors navigate and get access to services? There's many ways in which I believe that our parks are the places that people go, and therefore the resources should meet them where they're at. So ultimately, yes, we have to protect and preserve what we have, but I also think we have to use this moment of many systems failing and imagine bigger, and I have the skills and vision to deliver on that. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Pete Reyes, and I'm running to retain my seat on the Parks Tacoma Park Board of Commissioner position number 3, and I'm doing that because I believe that Tacoma's parks are one of our community's greatest treasures. My wife and I chose Tacoma to be our forever home after the first time we met. We visited and saw the beauty of Owen Beach at Point Defiance Park with our children. Since then, we've spent countless days exploring our trails, our parks, riding bikes, and building community through park events. So before joining the board, I served a number of years on the Active Living Advisory Council for Parks Tacoma, as well as volunteering with the Tacoma Nature Center as a beach naturalist and as a tree steward with the Tacoma Tree Foundation. So it was deeply meaningful to me to be appointed to the park board in a full circle moment. My family's Tacoma story began at Point Defiance Park, and today I'm one of the commissioners of that park. Professionally, I'm a union nurse with 15 years of experience in behavioral health, so I know firsthand how important it is to have safe, welcoming, affordable spaces for communities to be able to access to improve not only their physical health outcomes, but their mental health outcomes. As a nurse and as a father, I approach park board decisions through the lens of public health, safety, and community connection. I'm working so that every park and every community center can be a place where families gather, young children grow, and our seniors feel welcome. So that means to me, continuing to invest in safe playgrounds, in accessible trails, and park events that benefit working families like my own. It also means making sure our park spaces, our facilities, and our trees are resilient in the face of ongoing climate change. As a husband and as a father, I know how powerful access to welcoming, safe spaces are in shaping young lives. I'm working so that every child in Tacoma has the same opportunities that my own children have had to grow up in a community that values their health, their mental well-being, and their belonging. These are a few of the things that I want to try to do during my tenure on the park board. I am a nurse, so I want to, and we've been working, and I want to start and initiate a Parks RX program with Parks Tacoma. And we're getting that written up currently, but if you guys don't know what that is, I encourage you to Google that when you get home. But basically, you get a Cliff Notes version of it. It's a program in which a healthcare provider will write a prescription or a walk in the park, or a yoga class, or a dance lesson. And then parks partners with the insurance providers to cover the cost of that class. Because as a nurse, I know that preventative interventions are the best interventions. They're also the most cost-saving interventions. So number one, I want to activate public spaces to improve community health. I call that green time over screen time. Number two, I believe that teamwork makes the dream work. I want to elevate our collaboration opportunities, and I can already give you evidence of this happening. When the federal funding was terminated at the Larchmont Community Schoolyards project, we were able to use our partnerships with the Trust for Public Land and the Tacoma Public Schools to bridge the gap of funding, and that project is being completed as we speak. And once we get that underway, 2,000 residents are going to be within a 2-minute walk of a park in an underserved part of our area. So part of Teamwork Makes the Dream Work is partnering with our partners at the Tacoma Tree Foundation to improve our tree canopy. As a tree steward, that's very important to me. I'm proud to be endorsed by Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland and progressive leaders such as Speaker Lori Jenkins, Executive Ryan Mello, Senator Yasmin Trudeau, and as well as labor unions, 12 and counting, as well as community leaders like Lowell Wise, Tacoma Tree Foundation, Melissa Malad, Communities with Healthy Bay. I'm proud to carry the endorsement and I'd be proud to earn your vote. Thank you.
Can I invite the other candidates to come up and join us up at the front? We'll pull up a couple of chairs. Want to shuffle up the orders? So I'm going to suggest that we do something we only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to ask like a combination of questions, and then each candidate will have 90 seconds to talk about how they're at. So we got 1, 2, this goes. He's grabbing some water real quick. Okay. That's his plan to get the last word. So 90 seconds each. What I'd like to suggest that we do is, you've all talked about your vision for the parks. Yet, the parks just announced that there's a $6 to $8 million deficit. So could you talk about how you see addressing the difference between the deficit situation and the visions that you're talking about, which may play onto the line of, what is your opinion of the parks handling non-park services? Because that's obviously plays into it. So 90 seconds each, we'll just start one end and we'll work all the way through. So I'll tell you, when you see me wave, your 90 seconds are up.
I think that's an excellent question, because the reality is some things that we just can't see in the foreseeable future play out because of the deficit. So I think the Parks District needs to evaluate what are some currently non-park services that we're taking on and halting that, at least momentarily. Obviously, there's a great need that the city can't take on that the Parks District is holding right now, but really evaluating where some of those gaps are, and also being transparent with community about what's going on. I think the biggest thing that folks are really upset about is not because of the deficit, it's not because of the multiple positions that got impacted. I believe it was around 50 or so, but it was because of the communication to community that, frankly speaking, wasn't happening. My current job, we're facing a shortfall ourselves, and immediately once I sensed that, I communicated that amongst my staff to let them know, like, hey, this is just a reality that we're facing. How can we manage to get through it together? So I think the Parks District needs to figure out how they can communicate that to the public and get through it together, and make sure that community has a say on what they want, and what services they need, and what needs to be prioritized right now for unforeseen future.
Yeah, I just want to echo Malachi's point. So I wasn't on the board during this time. I think the thing that I've heard is, why is it such a sudden, significant reduction? The perception of it feeling sudden. to me, when you are not only given a responsibility to communicate transparently as soon as you have any indicators that there's something that, that is gonna impact community and staff. So that, I think, is kind of my first question, is like the kind of lead up to this, what we could have done better about communication. I also think from my experience working directly with cities, I've supported last year the city of Denver that was facing a gigantic budget deficit. They were having to look at staff cuts of up to 30%. It was huge. And meanwhile, this team I was with was trying to end gun violence, a gigantic goal. And that team, even though they were facing these immense cuts, they still saw opportunity to meet communities' needs by coordination, convening, collaboration across different silos. And so I think just because there are cuts that are happening, I think we obviously need to look at those programs from the lens of the ones that serve the most marginalized and keep those and preserve those. But I also think that we shouldn't be in this kind of deficit-based thinking that there's nothing else that is possible. Because the reality is, in order to retain public support for Parks Tacoma, we have to show and demonstrate public value. And that starts by dreaming with community.
One of the things I heard Malachi and Ron say is how important it was to let their staff know. Please know that the first people we let know at Tacoma was the staff. At Parks Tacoma was our staff. And yes, we will be transparent and let people know what the issue was and what this is for all of us that are coming on, and for those that aren't on, this is a 24-25 budget issue. And so we do know that we need to immediately convene for a budget amendment and work and to see. The other thing that's really important to know is that we will prioritize those programs that take care of our most vulnerable young and our most vulnerable citizens and our most vulnerable community to make sure that they get that known. This unfortunate budget problem is 5% of our budget, and we will work to make sure that we can look at what happened and why. There's always this, all of us have been through it as a personal budget. There's a stream that happens, there's reduction in revenue, there's added expenses and those things, and yes, I think that you need to make sure that you really watch those on a regular basis. This is something, the Parks is a huge machine. I am confident that as we look at those budget amendments, we can do two things. One, make sure that we can continue those programs that are most important for our community. And number two, ensure that we put those some of those things in place to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I just want to say I'm really excited to have a chance to talk about this issue. I know it must seem very concerning when you hear about something like this. As Carla mentioned, the budget shortfall is about an estimated 4 to 5% of our total budget. It is not ideal, but I don't want people to think that the programs they rely on are going to disappear. 10 people chose to voluntarily separate from our service, and another 14 were laid off. It's deeply saddening, but we're proud of the fact that we gave employees options, and that we also reduced positions at all levels. So that includes management, that included members of our senior team that are no longer there. We needed to give the administration time to notify affected staff members before we could share the information more broadly, and that brings us to now and having these discussions. We're still assessing the impacts, but at this time we believe these actions will at least stabilize this biennium budget, which goes through the end of 2026. And over the next 6 weeks or so, the park board is going to be working on the formal budget amendment. So that'll be the great time for you guys to reach out to us. We want to hear from community about your top priorities. We want to make sure that you feel listened to as we go through this for the first time. I think all of us here, none of us really had anything to do with the past budget, but I will say I'm really grateful that we caught it as early as we did so that we can correct course and make sure that we are responsible stewards of your funds into the future. Thank you.
Yes, so and this is a great question, and I'm excited about starting on this work, because I believe that being on the Parks Board is more than just cutting ribbons. I believe that it's doing the people's work and making sure it's reflecting the priorities of the public. That's why having a representational board is so important. the board priorities will dictate what those reductions in services look like. So I'm proud to say that we're going to be able to prioritize health and safety, maintain our commitments to environmental sustainability, and also continue to work and honor our partnerships. I mentioned the Tacoma Public Schools programs, Trust for Public Land. We have an intricate underpinning of lots of things, and we need to make sure that Parks Tacoma, being in probably the healthiest budget situation of the city, the schools, that we do what we can to honor our commitments. That's why I'm proud that the seniors do have a place to go after the city closed the senior centers, and they are being programmed. But I just want to reiterate that we are operating from a sustainability mindset, not a scarcity mindset. The programs and the things that we love about the parks will remain.
Yes, the shortfall is shocking. I'm very concerned that the staff and the commissioners were not looking more carefully at what is being spent, what's going on, what should be spent, what shouldn't be spent. A number of years ago, the Park District decided that we didn't need to have green, lush lawns. We could have brown lawns even in the summertime. And we could save that money instead of spending it on water. And the fallacies of having too much money just came up and caught them, and caught us. And I'm hopeful that our school district isn't going to be doing the same thing. Over $100,000 to change the name of a school from one name to another. $100,000 over that amount of your money, my money. And it's important that we do not follow that kind of a situation. We just need to say, look, we can get by on less. And if more money comes about, great. But if not, you got to be spending your money with an eye to thrift.
A big round of applause. Just to cover, as you noted, I had to read it, perhaps not captured it this time. The University of Puget Sound is a non-partisan organization and does not support or oppose any candidate for public office. Consistent with the university's educational mission and in the spirit of community engagement, Puget Sound may welcome candidates to campus to share their viewpoints with their community. As a service to the community, Puget Sound may welcome other organizations to use its facilities. University facilities are generally available to organizations that agree to comply with the university policies. So check that box. Karen, you had you want to come up? I'll just tell you about our next meeting next month. It's election time for us. So anybody who's interested in being on the board, please reach out to me or any of the other board members. We do have some open positions, so I don't think you're going to have too much problem getting elected. We also have a presentation on the One Tacoma Comprehensive Plan. We tried to get that set up in May and they bumped us, so we're getting that followed up. And last but not least, Council Member Walker will be coming to continue the outreach on the city right-of-way tree issue. So she's gone to 2 or 3 other neighborhood councils, and so it's our turn, and she'll be here to talk to us on that. And you have one announcement. Quick.
Thank you, Peter. My name is Karen Denicola, and I am your representative on the Environmental Services Commission. That's the commission that oversees the Environmental Services Department that has the solid waste, stormwater and wastewater utilities. And so if you have any questions or concerns about the rates or the policies or the programs of those utilities, get in touch with me, let me know, and I'll see if we can bring them to, up for discussion at the commission. How many of you saw this in your mail in the last couple of days? So this is EnviroTalk. This is one of the things that recently happened at the commission meeting is we encouraged them to try and reduce the costs of producing and mailing this newsletter. So it's now half the size, it's actually probably a quarter of the size that it used to be. I would really encourage all of you to, if you haven't looked at it already, or if you could fish it out of your recycle bin, there is a QR code